And it's a discovery, it's science, it's the mystery of what's going on in our lives, in our hearts, in our minds, in our experience. And what I tried to say today, and what came out of me yesterday, was there's only 3 papers that I think made a mark in the last half century, when newspapers collapsed in the face of television and the pathetic inability to respond to that medium. And I think it's the New York Herald Tribune, which I've never heard anybody say wasn't the greatest paper America ever produced, and the Washington Star, and the Los Angeles Herald Examiner. They're like fine wines in contrast to Budweiser, manufactured by corporate monopoly bastards who look at the bottom line. Yeah! And Jim was the only one with enough something. I'm not sure any of us know quite what it was, because it was so much a finger pointing the way. I worked at the happiest time of my time at the Herald at 5:30 in the morning with Andy Ferrillo, who was an amazing reporter. And Andy and my job was to come up with a banner headline for the home and street edition. And Jim and Tom Plate would arrive precisely at 7 o'clock every morning, and I would come in there and pitch whatever we had. And if, you know, it was like talking to the air unless you had something good. And I remember Andy and my both favorite stories was a nothing story. It was about punks in a pickup truck spraying off of a back of a pickup truck, people waiting at a bus stop on Wilshire Boulevard with a fire extinguisher. And a woman at the bus stop was enraged enough that she got the bus driver to chase the pickup truck. And they tracked it down and caught it and blocked it and caught these guys, not knowing what was, you know, whether they were poisoned or what. And I'm pitching the story to Jim, and like, I don't know, man, I got this story about a fire here and a homicide over there. And Jim's, suddenly those eyes light up, and he says, "You mean bus riders turn crime fighters?" It was like, wow, we got a story, Andy! Andy was amazing that by 8:30 in the morning, he tracked down the woman. By 10:30, he had the bus driver, and we had the complete story by the 12:30 deadline, which of course I pushed to 1:10. But I mean, it was about that. It was about things that were real, and not the big story as much as the real story, the story behind the story that moved people's hearts, minds, and souls. And you know, in a small way, you carry that forward and try to execute it without the sophistication, the talent, the brains, the mystique of a Jim Bellows. But I think everybody I know who was at the Herald when I was there, and I think my newsroom, I think we all get it, that this is something holy, something profound that we do. And you know, I have more empathy today now that I'm fighting to save the Daily News, and it seems hopeless, except for the spirit of the journalists who are fighting to do that. And you know, it would be nice to walk away and say, fuck these people. But I got to tell you, I mean, there's still a chance. There's, you know, stories to be told. And I think that's what bonds us all together in this fraternity of journalists, sorority. I live with that. It's something real to try to tell people what's going on in their lives. And I think Jim was the master. And thank you, Jim.
Bobby Shriver spent only a short time at the Herald Examiner, but he was there because of Jim Bellows, and I've asked him just to say a brief word or two, count up either way. This is Bobby Shriver, who is an attorney and a member of the Santa Monica City Council, and a friend of Jim Bellows. Just share us a little bit what brought you to the Herald.
It's embarrassing to stand up here with all these brilliant people. Should I stand or should I sit?
What are you covering?
I tried to get a job when I got out of college.
I'm going to sit down here.
Okay. And I got a job in Annapolis at the Evening Capital, covering the police, and my objective was to get a job for the Star. I wanted to work for the Star. Of course, I knew Mary Ann Dolan. I think I met in a bar in Washington. The guards, as I recall. And I won't say what was going on when I was there, but that's where I met her. And then I knew, of course, Jim was doing all the brilliant things there. I kept trying to get a job, but my clips weren't good enough. So I had to work there. Another, they forced me to work there. Then I got a job in Chicago, the Daily News. I moved out to Chicago. The Daily News promptly went under. After I'd been there 6 months, Jim Hogue fired everybody in the newsroom. I was the first person fired because I was the most junior employee. I sent my clips out again, and I got an offer at that time. I guess my clips were good enough. I think, Mary Ann, you were here and stood then, and the great Frank Volley and the very great Don Force. But just walked in, I haven't seen him. Don is here. And lo and behold, I got an offer in Miami, and I got an offer in LA. And I came to LA not knowing anybody other than Mary Ann and Jim. I lived in Jim's guest house, thank God, because I had no idea where I should live. And occasionally would ride in to work with him. And get the thing about what should be covered. I was assigned, first thing I was assigned to do was answer Wanda's phone. Due to the excellent, that was thank you, Linda knows, that was actually quite an important job since Cary Grant, Tom Selleck, and Clint Eastwood called successfully from day to day. And I'm not kidding. And then David Israel would come over. David's back there somewhere and look at the incoming calls from Wanda. He goes, I don't believe a word of it. And I would assign him to sit there for a minute and he would answer it. And it's the truth. Well, I think Wanda goes, it's not true, it is true. That was, I was
answering your phone, that's my turn.
That was never, I never got a single call. But it was funny. Jim, I don't remember any particularly funny things other than watching Don Force go out of the building and step into the crosswalk to see if the traffic would actually stop. All of us from the East Coast would step in there, see the traffic stop, go, that is amazing, and walk back into the building. If you grew up in the East, nothing like that ever happened. They just ran you over. So we were having fun in California. I was assigned to go do stories on the bodybuilding business, where I fell in with an irregular fellow down there, which has brought us a long way since covering that story, to put it mildly. So that's it. We had a great time. I left to go to law school after a year here, and had such a fun time. It was page 2. We had Caroline Cushing doing all those crazy things that Caroline did. I don't know. It was fun. The Herrex was great. It was like the Daily News in Chicago. Loved beating the Times whenever we could scoop the Times. Reminded me.
The Whale.
The Whale. Does anybody remember a guy called Jay McMullen who covered City Hall for the Sun-Times in Chicago? And he ended up dating. There you go. Excuse me, the Daily News. Thank you. Thank you. And he was dating Jane Byrne.
David's memory.
I'm glad David's here. So he was dating Jane Byrne when she became mayor. And of course the Tribune and the Sun-Times, remember, David demanded that he resign his beat as a City Hall reporter since his girlfriend was now the mayor. And he held a press conference and announced that he was not going to get out of his beat because he liked being able to get out of bed and scoop the Tribune. I always liked that attitude. I tried. That was the attitude we had in the Herrex about trying to scoop the Times. It was fun.
Well, we still have a mayor here who likes to date journalists. Probably thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to join me because I'm going to ask Jim Bellows to stand up, and let's give a round of applause to the greatest newspaper editor in the history of the world. Okay.
First things first.
I'm so delighted Jim is here. And with Jim